Hello, happy Halloween. This is Carrie with Dark Side of the Library, and tonight I'm going to be reading a couple of Grimm's fairy tales to celebrate Halloween night. I got one whole trick-or-treater tonight. She was about 7 years old and she was dressed as Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas, so I was delighted to see her and gave her lots of extra candy. But for now, it's time to settle in. Oh, we are not started live on Amazon Live because I didn't put a title yet. Pardon me a second. Grimm Tales. Good enough. I was going to read some Edgar Allan Poe tonight, but I can't find my Edgar Allan Poe book. So that will have to wait for another autumn or winter evening. Okay, I'm a little blurry because I'm using my night lighting and it's a bit much, but that's okay. I'm going to start off with Happy Halloween. And I'm reading from the Project Gutenberg copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales, which only has a few to choose from, so I found the most dark, morbid ones I could find. I skipped Hansel and Gretel because that's a bit much. We are going to start with a short one. Let me know if you can hear me. Just want to make sure. All right. It is The 7 Ravens. There once was a man who had 7 sons and last of all, 1 daughter. Although the little girl was very pretty, she was so weak and small that they thought she could not live, but they said she should at once be christened. So the father sent one of his sons in haste to the spring to get some water, but the other 6 ran with him. Each wanted to be first at drawing the water, and so they were in such a hurry that all let their pitchers fall into the well, and they stood very foolishly looking at one another, and did not know what to do, for none dared go home. In the meantime, the father was uneasy, and could not tell what made the young men stay so long. Surely, said he, the whole 7 must have forgotten themselves over some game of play. And when he had waited still longer, and they yet did not come, he flew into a rage and wished them all turned into ravens. Scarcely had he spoken these words when he heard a croaking over his head, and looked up and saw 7 ravens as black as coal, flying round and round. Sorry as he was to see his wish so fulfilled, he did not know how what was done could be undone, and comforted himself as well as he could for the loss of his 7 sons with his dear little daughter, who soon became stronger and every day more beautiful. For a long time she did not know that she ever had any brothers, for her father and mother took care not to speak of them before her. But one day by chance, she heard the people about her speak of them. Yes, said they, she is beautiful indeed, but still 'tis a pity that her brothers should have been lost for her sake. Then she was much grieved and went to her father and mother and asked if she had any brothers and what had become of them. So they dared no longer hide the truth from her, but said it was the will of heaven, and that her birth was only the innocent cause of it. But the little girl mourned sadly about it every day, and thought herself bound to do all she could to bring her brothers back. And she had neither rest nor ease, till at length one day she stole away and set out into the wide world to find her brothers, wherever they might be, and free them whatever it might cost her. She took nothing with her but a little ring which her father and mother had given her, a loaf of bread in case she should be hungry, a little pitcher of water in case she should be thirsty, and a little stool to rest upon when she should be weary. Thus she went on, and journeyed till she came to the world's end. Then she came to the sun, but the sun looked much too hot and fiery, so she ran away quickly to the moon. But the moon was cold and chilly, and said, I smell flesh and blood this way. So she took herself away in a hurry and came to the stars, and the stars were friendly and kind to her. And each star sat upon his own little stool. But the morning star rose up and gave her a little piece of wood and said, If you have not this little piece of wood, you cannot unlock the castle that stands on the glass mountain, and there your brothers live. The little girl took the piece of wood, rolled it up in a little cloth, and went on again until she came to the glass mountain and found the door shut. Then she felt for the little piece of wood, but when she unwrapped the cloth, it was not there, and she saw she had lost the gift of the good stars. What was to be done? She wanted to save her brothers and had no key of the castle of the glass mountain. So this faithful little sister took a knife out of her pocket and cut off her little finger. That was just the size of the piece of wood she had lost, and put it in the door and opened it. As she went in, a little dwarf came up to her and said, "What are you seeking for?" "I seek for my brothers, the 7 ravens," answered she. Then the dwarf said, "My masters are not at home, but if you will wait till they come, pray step in." Now the little dwarf was getting their dinner ready, and he brought their food upon 7 little plates, and their drink in 7 little glasses, and set them upon the table. And out of each little plate their sister ate a small piece, and out of each little glass she drank a small drop. But she let the ring she had brought with her fall into the last glass. On a sudden she heard a fluttering and croaking in the air, and the dwarf said, "Here come my masters." When they came in, they wanted to eat and drink, and looked for their little plates and glasses. Then said one after the other, "Who has eaten from my little plate? And who has been drinking out of my little glass?" "Caw, caw, well I ween, mortal lips have this way been." When the 7th came to the bottom of his glass and found there the ring, he looked at it and knew that it was his father's and mother's, and said, "Oh, that our little sister would but come, then we should be free." When the little girl heard this, for she stood behind the door all this time and listened, she ran forward, and in an instant all the ravens took their right form again, and all hugged and kissed each other and went merrily home. That was The 7 Ravens by the Grimm brothers. I'm going to take a moment and take a sip of water to rehydrate and chat about some of the things you see behind me. This is my Trick-or-Treaters mug by Portobello by Design. It has a vampire, a little girl dressed as a devil, the Grim Reaper or Death. It has a ghost carrying a jack-o'-lantern balloon, and a little witch with a bucket of treats and a pumpkin head. It is unfortunately not microwave friendly and not dishwasher safe, so I have to hand wash it. Oh well, it's cute. It is also pretty expensive. It's $22.49. Now, behind me are some beautiful editions of books such as Dracula. This is a puffin cloth-bound classic that I wanted to show you. It is absolutely stunning. It looks great on Bookstagram and Book Talk. It is not illustrated, but the end papers are gorgeous, and there's a ribbon to keep your place, and it is cloth bound, so it is vegan and vegetarian friendly. It is $23.38 here on Amazon. So shiny, and it has bats. I wanted to point out these little flameless LED candles that I use so that I do not burn up my house with candles and books. They alternate different colors. They come with a little remote. Right now this is orange. It's changing to yellow. It's hard to see when I hold it up to the camera. It's going to change to hot pink and then green and then blue, etc. Oh, it's green right now. And a lot of people ask me about this flameless candle. Currently, the green one is sold out, but the orange one is available. It takes batteries on the bottom. It's flameless up here. And inside, some glittery spiders just swirl around. Those little plastic spiders inside that go around in circles. It is a Halloween snow globe with a flameless LED candle at the top. It's kind of cheesy looking, but I find it fun and festive. I'm going to read the next Grimm fairy tales story in about 1 minute. I just also wanted to mention, because everybody asks when they see it behind me, what is that little house? Well, it's really inexpensive. It's balsa wood. It's by Lulu Home. It is meant for your mantle, and it lights up. There's a battery compartment down here, and it has kind of shimmery plastic inside, so it's sparkly. There's a kitty and a witch's cauldron, a jack-o'-lantern, and it's just really thin wood, so it is kind of breakable, but it really makes an impact, and I put it in my front window tonight for the trick-or-treaters to see it. And this, the battery is slowly dying, but I don't know if you can see that it's kind of flickering inside. Oh, thanks for the follow, Hero Smudge. Happy Halloween. What is your costume, if any? So this is a light up Happy Jack candle. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to recharge this or replace that battery, so I'm trying to use it as little as possible, but it's Halloween. I also put this in my window, but I think he looks cute right here on my bookshelf too. It's flickering. And I wanted to mention this gorgeous Barnes & Noble edition of Frankenstein. This is a flexi bound, so it is not leather. So it's vegetarian and vegan friendly. I love that it has a black ribbon, and the edges of the pages are red. It feels really good because it's not leather. And then the inside, no illustrations. It's just a beautiful way to read Frankenstein. And I know a lot of people that start rereading Frankenstein in October and November every year. Speaking of flexi-bound editions, this is it's not $54. That's a weird listing. Don't pay $54 for this. I got mine at Barnes & Noble for about $20, so wait till the price drops. But just so you know that this exists, it looks gorgeous on my library shelf. It is flexi-bound, so it's not real leather. It's high-quality paper or faux leather. The edges of the pages are black. It has beautiful marbled papers, and I love the font that they use on the front. And then it's the story of Dracula, which I also know people that reread this every Halloween season, or the spooky season, autumn. We'll save the last Dracula book for after the next story. You dressed up as a witch tonight. Yes, me too, because it's comfortable. I can basically wear just a nice velvet top. I'm wearing some ugly sweatpants down below because no one can see it on camera. And then when I opened the door, I just kind of pulled my tunic down, and I only had one trick-or-treater. She was very cute. She was dressed as Sally. So happy Halloween. The next story I'm going to read, I'm looking for the shorter of the two. It's called The Little Peasant. There was a certain village wherein no one lived but really rich peasants and just one poor one, whom they called the Little Peasant. He had not even so much as a cow and still less money to buy one. And yet he and his wife did so wish to have one. One day he said to her, "Listen, I have a good idea. There is our gossip the carpenter. He shall make us a calf out of wood and paint it brown so that it looks like any other, and in time it will certainly get big and be a cow." The woman also liked the idea, and their gossip the carpenter cut and planed the calf and painted it as it ought to be, and made it with its head hanging down as though it were eating. Next morning, when the cows were being driven out, the little peasant called the cowherd in and said, "Look, I have a little calf there, but it is still small and has to be carried." The cowherd said, "All right," and took it in his arms and carried it to the pasture and set it among the grass. The little calf always remained standing like one which was eating, and the cowherd said, "It will soon run by itself. Just look how it eats already." At night, when he was going to drive the herd home again, he said to the calf, "If you can stand there and eat your fill, you can also go on your 4 legs. I don't care to drag you home again in my arms." But the little peasant stood at his door and waited for his little calf. And when the cowherd drove the cows through the village and the calf was missing, he inquired where it was. The cowherd answered, "It is still standing out there eating. It would not stop and come with us." But the little peasant said, "Oh, but I must have my beast back again." Then they went back to the meadow together, but someone had stolen the calf and it was gone. The cowherd said it must have run away. The peasant, however, said, "Don't tell me that," and led the cowherd before the mayor, who for his carelessness condemned him to give the peasant a cow for the calf which had run away. And now the little peasant and his wife had the cow for which they had so long wished, and they were heartily glad, but they had no food for it, and could give it nothing to eat, so it soon had to be killed. They salted the flesh, and the peasant went into the town and wanted to sell the skin there, so that he might buy a new calf with the proceeds. On the way he passed by a mill, and there sat a raven with broken wings, and out of pity he took him and wrapped him in the skin. But as the weather grew so bad and there was a storm of rain and wind, he could go no farther, and turned back to the mill and begged for shelter. The miller's wife was alone in the house and said to the peasant, "Lay yourself on the straw there," and gave him a slice of bread and cheese. The peasant ate it and lay down with his skin beside him, and the woman thought, "He is tired and has went to sleep." In the meantime came the parson. The miller's wife received him well and said, "My husband is out, so we will have a feast." The peasant listened, and when he heard them talk about feasting, he was vexed that he had been forced to make shift with a slice of bread and cheese. Then the woman served up 4 different things: roast meat, salad, cakes, and wine. Just as they were about to sit down and eat, there was a knocking outside. The woman said, "Oh heavens, it is my husband." She quickly hid the roast meat inside the tiled stove, the wine under the pillow, the salad on the bed, the cakes under it, and the parson in the closet on the porch. Then she opened the door for her husband and said, "Thank heaven you are back again. There is such a storm, it looks as if the world were coming to an end." The miller saw the peasant lying in the straw and asked, "What is that fellow doing here?" "Oh," said the wife, "the poor knave came in the storm and rain and begged for shelter, so I gave him a bit of bread and cheese and showed him where the straw was." The man said, "I have no objection, but be quick and get me something to eat." The woman said, "But I have nothing but bread and cheese." "I am contented with anything," replied the husband. "So far as I am concerned, bread and cheese will do," and looked at the peasant and said, "Come and eat some more with me." The peasant did not require to be invited twice, but got up and ate. After this, the miller saw the skin in which the raven was, lying on the ground, and asked, "What have you there?" The peasant answered, "I have a soothsayer inside it." "Can he foretell anything to me?" asked the miller. "Why not?" answered the peasant. "But he only says 4 things, and the 5th he keeps to himself." The miller was curious and said, "Let him foretell something for once." Then the peasant pinched the raven's head so that he croaked and made a noise like "Grr, grr." The miller said, "What did he say?" The peasant answered, "In the first place, he says that there is some wine hidden under the pillow." "Bless me!" cried the miller, and went there and found the wine. "Now go on," said he. The peasant made the raven croak again and said, "In the second place, he says that there is some roast meat in the tiled stove." "Upon my word!" cried the miller, and went thither and found the roast meat. The peasant made the raven prophesy still more and said, "Thirdly, he says that there is some salad on the bed." "That would be a fine thing," cried the miller, and went there and found a salad. At last the peasant pinched the raven once more till he croaked and said, "Fourthly, he says that there are some cakes under the bed." "That would be a fine thing," cried the miller, and looked there and found the cakes. And now the two sat down to the table together. But the miller's wife was frightened to death and went to bed and took all the keys with her. The miller would have liked much to know the 5th prophecy, but the little peasant said, "First, we will quickly eat the 4 things, for the 5th is something bad." So they ate, and after that they bargained how much the miller was to give for the 5th prophecy, until they agreed on 300 thalers. Then the peasant once more pinched the raven's head till he croaked loudly. The miller asked, "What did he say?" The peasant replied, "He says that the devil is hiding outside there in the closet on the porch." The miller said, "The devil must go out." and opened the house door. And then the woman was forced to give up the keys, and the peasant unlocked the closet. The parson ran out as fast as he could, and the miller said, "It was true. I saw the rascal with my own eyes." The peasant, however, made off next morning by daybreak with the 300 thalers. At home, the small peasant gradually launched out. He built a beautiful house, and the peasant said, "The small peasant has certainly been to the place where golden snow falls, and people carry the gold home in shovels." Then the small peasant was brought before the mayor and bidden to say from whence his wealth came. He answered, "I sold my cow's skin in the town for 300 thalers. When the peasants heard that, they too wished to enjoy this great profit, and ran home, killed all their cows, and stripped off their skins in order to sell them in the town to the greatest advantage. The mayor, however, said, "But my servant must go first." When she came to the merchant in the town, he did not give her more than 2 thalers for a skin. And when the others came, he did not give them so much and said, "What can I do with all these skins?" Then the peasants were vexed that the small peasant should have thus outwitted them. They wanted to take vengeance on him and accused him of this treachery before the mayor. The innocent little peasant was unanimously sentenced to death and was to be rolled into the water in a barrel pierced full of holes. He was led forth, and a priest was brought who was to say a mass for his soul. The others were all obliged to retire to a distance, and when the peasant looked at the priest, he recognized the man who had been with the miller's wife. He said to him, "I set you free from the closet, set me free from the barrel." At this same moment up came with a flock of sheep the very shepherd whom the peasant knew had long been wishing to be mayor. So he cried with all his might, "No, I will not do it. If the whole world insists on it, I will not do it." The shepherd, hearing that, came up to him and asked, "What are you about? What is it that you will not do?" The peasant said, "They want to make me mayor if I will but put myself in the barrel, but I will not do it." The shepherd said, "If nothing more than that is needful in order to be mayor, I would get into the barrel at once." The peasant said, "If you will get in, you will be mayor." The shepherd was willing and got in, and the peasant shut the top down on him. Then he took the shepherd's flock for himself and drove it away. The parson went to the crowd and declared that the mass had been said. Then they came and rolled the barrel towards the water. When the barrel began to roll, the shepherd cried, "I am quite willing to be mayor." They believed no otherwise than that it was the peasant who was saying this, and answered, "That is what we intend, but first you shall look about you a little down below there." And they rolled the barrel down into the water. After that, the peasants went home, and as they were entering the village, the small peasant also came quietly in, driving a flock of sheep and looking quite contented. Then the peasants were astonished and said, "Peasant, from whence do you come? Have you come out of the water?" "Yes, truly," replied the peasant. "I sank deep, deep down until at last I got to the bottom. I pushed the bottom out of the barrel and crept out, and there were pretty meadows under which a number of lambs were feeding, and from thence I brought this flock away with me." Said the peasants, "Are there any more there?" "Oh, yes," said he, "more than I could want." Then the peasants made up their minds that they too would fetch some sheep for themselves in the river, a flock apiece. But the mayor said, "I come first." So they went to the water together, and just then there were some of the small fleecy clouds in the blue sky, which are called little lambs, and they were reflected in the water. Whereupon the peasants cried, "We already see the sheep down below." The mayor pressed forward and said, "I will go down first and look about me, and if things promise well, I'll call you." So he jumped in. Splash went the water. It sounded as if he were calling them, and the whole crowd plunged in after him as one man. Then the entire village was dead, and the small peasant, as sole heir, became a rich man. That was The Little Peasant by the Brothers Grimm. We have one more story that I will read tonight if my voice holds out, and it is a doozy. The last book I wanted to show you is a stunning edition of Dracula. It is incredibly beautiful, and actually, as an Amazon influencer, I've been selling a couple of these a day for months now, ever since it came out. This is gorgeous. It has illustrations inside by Edward Gorey. The cover is flocked. It's kind of velvety. And it has a ribbon to keep your place. The spine looks stunning on your bookshelf. And the best part is the edges of the paper are lined in bats. How cool is that? The end paper is a gory illustration that he did for the play Dracula back in the day, a long time ago. And then there are a few illustrations by him in here. Not enough. Not very many. They're here somewhere. I'm just not doing a good job of flipping it for you. Let's try that again. There's got to be more than one illustration. I'm not seeing it. Oh, I passed one. Anyway, it is a stunning gift edition. This would be a great Christmas present for the goth in your life, or the vampire fan, or the classic literature fan that has a little bit of a morbid sensibility about them. Stunning and beautiful. I'm going to put it back carefully. Whoops. Let me know if you have any questions about these items. And I'm going to read one final Grimm's Brothers story from the Project Gutenberg copy because it is in the public domain. And this book is not, so I can't read directly out of this one. This next story is a bit of a long one. It is so good, though. Okay. It is called The Story of the Youth Who Went Forth to Learn What Fear Was. The perfect story for Halloween. A certain father had 2 sons, the elder of who was smart and sensible and could do everything, but the younger was stupid and could neither learn nor understand anything. And when people saw him, they said, "There's a fellow who will give his father some trouble." When anything had to be done, it was always the elder who was forced to do it. But if his father bade him fetch anything when it was late or in the nighttime and the way led through the churchyard or any other dismal place, he answered, "Oh no, father, I'll not go there. It makes me shudder," for he was afraid. Or when stories were told by the fire at night which made the flesh creep, the listeners sometimes said, "Oh, it makes us shudder." The younger sat in a corner and listened with the rest of them and could not imagine what they could mean. They are always saying, "It makes me shudder, it makes me shudder." "It does not make me shudder," thought he. "That too must be an art of which I understand nothing." Now it came to pass that his father said to him one day, "Hearken to me, you fellow in the corner there. You are growing tall and strong, and you too must learn something by which you can earn your bread. Look how your brother works, but you do not even earn your salt." "Well, father," he replied, "I am quite willing to learn something. Indeed, if it could but be managed, I should like to learn how to shudder. I don't understand that at all yet." The elder brother smiled when he heard that and thought to himself, "Goodness, what a blockhead that brother of mine is. He will never be good for anything as long as he lives. He who wants to be a sickle must bend himself betimes." The father sighed and answered him, "You shall soon learn what it is to shudder, but you will not earn your bread by that." Well, soon after this, the sexton came to the house on a visit, and the father bewailed his trouble and told him how his younger son was so backward in every respect that he knew nothing and learned nothing. "Just think," said he, "when I asked him how he was going to earn his bread, he actually wanted to learn to shudder." "Oh, if that be all," replied the sexton, "he can learn that with me. Send him to me, and I will soon polish him." The father was glad to do it, for he thought, "It will train the boy a little." The sexton therefore took him into his house, and he had to ring the church bell. After a day or two, the sexton awoke him at midnight, and bade him arise and go up into the church tower and ring the bell. You shall soon learn what shuddering is, thought he, and secretly went there before him. And when the boy was at the top of the tower and turned round and was just going to take hold of the bell rope, he saw a white figure standing on the stairs opposite the sounding hole. "Who is there?" cried he, but the figure made no reply and did not move or stir. "Give an answer," cried the boy, "or take yourself off. You have no business here at night." The sexton, however, remained standing motionless, that the boy might think he was a ghost. The boy cried a second time, "What do you want here? Speak, if you are an honest fellow, or I will throw you down the steps." The sexton thought, he can't mean to be as bad as his words. So he uttered no sound and stood as if he were made of stone. Then the boy called to him for the third time, and as that was also to no purpose, he ran against him and pushed the ghost down the stairs, so that it fell down the 10 steps and remained lying there in a corner. Thereupon he rang the bell, went home, and without saying a word went to bed and fell asleep. The sexton's wife waited a long time for her husband, but he did not come back. At length she became uneasy and wakened the boy and asked, "Do you know where my husband is? He climbed up the tower before you did." "No, I don't know," replied the boy, "but someone was standing by the sounding hole on the other side of the steps, and as he would neither give an answer nor go away, I took him for a scoundrel and threw him downstairs. Just go there and you will see if it was he. I should be sorry if it were." The woman ran away and found her husband, who was lying moaning in the corner and had broken his leg. Those of you just joining us, we're reading the story of the youth who set out to find what fear was. The sexton's wife carried him down, and with loud screams she hastened to the boy's father. "Your boy," cried she, "has been the cause of a great misfortune. He has thrown my husband down the steps so that he broke his leg. Take the good-for-nothing fellow out of our house." The father was terrified and ran thither and scolded the boy. "What wicked tricks are these?" said he. "The devil must have put them into your head." "Father," he replied, "do listen to me. I am quite innocent. He was standing there by night like one intent on doing evil. I did not know who it was, and I entreated him 3 times either to speak or to go away." "Ah," said the father, "I have nothing but unhappiness with you. Go out of my sight. I will see you no more." "Yes, father, right willingly. Wait only until it is day. Then I will go forth and learn how to shudder, and then I shall at any rate understand one art which will support me." "Learn what you will," spoke the father. "It is all the same to me. Here are 50 thalers for you. Take these and go into the wide world, and tell no one from whence you come and who is your father, for I have reason to be ashamed of you." "Yes, father, it shall be as you will. If you desire nothing more than that, I can easily keep it in mind." When the day dawned, therefore, the boy put his 50 thalers into his pocket and went forth on the great highway, and continually said to himself, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." Then a man approached who heard this conversation which the youth was holding with himself. And when they had walked a little farther to where they could see the gallows, the man said to him, "Look, there is the tree where 7 men have married the rope maker's daughter and are now learning how to fly. Sit down beneath it and wait till night comes, and you will soon learn how to shudder." "If that is all that is wanted," answered the youth, "it is easily done. But if I learn how to shudder as fast as that, you shall have my 50 thalers. Just come back to me early in the morning." Then the youth went to the gallows, sat down beneath it, and waited till evening came. And as he was cold, he lighted himself a fire. But at midnight the wind blew so sharply that in spite of his fire he could not get warm. And as the wind knocked the hanged men against each other, and they moved backwards and forwards, he thought to himself, "If you shiver below by the fire, how those up above must freeze and suffer." And as he felt pity for them, he raised the ladder and climbed up, unbound one of them after the other, and brought down all 7. Then he stoked the fire, blew it, and set them all around it to warm themselves. But they sat there and did not stir, and the fire caught their clothes. So he said, "Take care, or I will hang you up again." The dead men, however, did not hear, but were quite silent, and let their rags go on burning. At this he grew angry and said, "If you will not take care, I cannot help you. I will not be burnt with you." And he hung them up again, each in his turn. Then he sat down by his fire and fell asleep. And the next morning the man came to him and wanted to have the 50 thalers and said, "Well, do you know how to shudder?" "No," answered he. "How should I know? Those fellows up there did not open their mouths, and were so stupid that they let the few old rags which they had on their bodies get burnt." Then the man saw that he would not get the 50 thalers that day, and went away saying, "Such a youth has never come my way before." The youth likewise went his way, and once more began to mutter to himself, "Ah, if I could but shudder! Oh, if I could but shudder!" A wagoner who was striding behind him heard this and asked, "Who are you?" "I don't know," answered the youth. Then the wagoner asked, "From whence do you come?" "I know not." "Who is your father?" "That I may not tell you." "What is it that you are always muttering between your teeth?" "Ah," replied the youth, "I do so wish I could shudder, but no one can teach me how." "Enough of your foolish chatter," said the wagoner. "Come, go with me. I will see about a place for you." The youth went with the wagoner, and in the evening they arrived at an inn where they wished to pass the night. Then at the entrance of the parlor the youth again said quite loudly, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." The host, who heard this, laughed and said, "If that is your desire, there ought to be a good opportunity for you here." "Ah, be silent," said the hostess. "So many prying persons have already lost their lives. It would be a pity and a shame if such beautiful eyes as these should never see the daylight again." But the youth said, "However difficult it may be, I will learn it. For this purpose indeed have I journeyed forth." He let the host have no rest until the latter told him that not far from thence stood a haunted castle, where anyone could very easily learn what shuddering was, if he would but watch for it for 3 nights. The king had promised that he who would venture should have his daughter to wife, and she was the most beautiful maiden the sun shone on. Likewise, in the castle lay great treasures, which were guarded by evil spirits, and these treasures would then be freed and would make a poor man rich enough. Already many men had gone into the castle, but as yet none had come out again. Then the youth went next morning to the king and said, "If it be allowed, I will willingly watch 3 nights in the haunted castle." The king looked at him, and as the youth pleased him, he said, "You may ask for 3 things to take into the castle with you, but they must be 3 things without life." Then the boy answered, "Then I ask for a fire, a turning lathe, and a cutting board with a knife." The king had these things carried into the castle for him during the day. When night was drawing near, the youth went up and made himself a bright fire in one of the rooms, placed the cutting board and knife beside it, and seated himself by the turning lathe. "Ah, if I could but shudder," said he, "but I shall not learn it here either." Towards midnight he was about to poke his fire, and as he was blowing it, something cried suddenly from one corner, "Oh, meow, how cold we are!" "You fools," cried he, "what are you crying about? If you are cold, come and take a seat by the fire and warm yourselves." And when he had said that, 2 great black cats came with one tremendous leap and sat down on each side of him and looked savagely at him with their fiery eyes. After a short time, when they had warmed themselves, they said, "Comrade, shall we have a game of cards?" "Why not?" he replied, "but just show me your paws." Then they stretched out their claws. "Oh," said he, "what long nails you have! Wait, I must first cut them for you." Thereupon he seized them by the throats, put them on the cutting board, and screwed their feet fast. "I have looked at your fingers," said he, "and my fancy for card playing has gone." And he struck them dead and threw them out into the water. But when he had made away with these 2 and was about to sit down again by his fire, out from every hole and corner came black cats and black dogs with red-hot chains, and more of them came until he could no longer move. And they yelled horribly and got on his fire, pulled it to pieces, and tried to put it out. watched them for a while quietly, but at last, when they were going too far, he seized his cutting knife and cried, "Away with you, vermin!" and began to cut them down. Some of them ran away, the others he killed and threw out into the fish pond. When he came back, he fanned the embers of his fire again and warmed himself. And as he thus sat, his eyes would keep open no longer, and he felt a desire to sleep. Then he looked round and saw a great bed in the corner. "That is the very thing for me," said he, and got into it. When he was just going to shut his eyes, however, the bed began to move by its own accord and went over the whole of the castle. "That's right," said he, "but go faster." Then the bed rolled on as if 6 horses were harnessed to it, up and down over thresholds and stairs. But suddenly, hop, hop, it turned over upside down and lay on him like a mountain. But he threw quilts and pillows up into the air, got out and said, "Now anyone who likes may drive," and lay down by his fire and slept until it was day. In the morning the king came, and when he saw him lying there on the ground, he thought the evil spirits had killed him and he was dead. Then said he, "Oh, after all, it is a pity for so handsome a man." The youth heard it, got up and said, "It has not come to that yet." Then the king was astonished, but very glad, and asked how he had fared. "Very well indeed," answered he. "One night is past, and 2 others shall pass likewise." Then he went to the innkeeper, who opened his eyes very wide and said, "I never expected to see you alive again. Have you learnt how to shudder yet?" "No," said he, "it is all in vain. If someone would but tell me." The second night he again went up into the old castle, sat down by the fire, and once more began his old song, "If I Could But Shudder." When midnight came, an uproar and noise of tumbling about was heard. At first it was low, but it grew louder and louder. Then it was quiet for a while, and at length, with a loud scream, half a man came down the chimney and fell before him. "Hello!" cried he. "Another half belongs to this. This is not enough." Then the uproar began again, and there was a roaring and howling, and the other half fell down likewise. "Wait," said he, "I will just stoke up the fire a little for you." When he had done that and looked round again, the 2 pieces were joined together, and a hideous man was sitting in his place. "That is no part of our bargain," said the youth. "The bench is mine." The man wanted to push him away. The youth, however, would not allow that. He thrust him off with all his strength and seated him again in his own place. Then still more men fell down, one after the other. They brought 9 dead men's legs and 2 skulls, and set them up and played at ninepins with them. The youth also wanted to play and said, "Listen, you, can I join you?" "Well, yes, if you have any money." "Money enough," replied he, "but your balls are not quite round." So then he took the skulls and put them in the lathe and turned them till they were round. "There, now they will roll better," said he. "Hurrah, now we'll have fun." He played with them and lost some of his money, but when it struck 12, everything vanished from his sight. He lay down and quietly fell asleep. Next morning the king came to inquire after him. "How has it fared with you this time?" asked he. "I have been playing at ninepins," he answered, "and have lost a couple of farthings." "Have you not shuddered then?" "What?" said he. "I have had a wonderful time. If I did but know what it was to shudder." The third night he sat down again on his bench and said quite sadly, "If I could but shudder." When it grew late, 6 tall men came in and brought a coffin. Then he said, "Ha ha, that is certainly my little cousin who died only a few days ago." And he beckoned with his finger and cried, "Come, little cousin, come." They placed the coffin on the ground, but he went to it and took the lid off, and a dead man lay therein. He felt his face, but it was cold as ice. "Wait," said he, "I shall warm you a little," and went to the fire and warmed his hand and laid it on the dead man's face, but he remained cold. Then he took him out and sat down by the fire and laid him on his breast and rubbed his arms that the blood might circulate again. As this also did no good, he thought to himself, "When 2 people lie in bed together, they warm each other," and carried the corpse to the bed, covered him over, and lay down by him. After a short time, the dead man became warm too and began to move. Then said the youth, "See, little cousin, have I not warmed you?" The dead man, however, got up and cried, "Now I will strangle you." "What?" said he. "Is that the way you thank me? You shall at once go into your coffin again." And he took him up, threw him into it, and shut the lid. Then came the 6 men and carried him away again. Cannot manage to shudder," said he. "I shall never learn it here as long as I live." Then a man entered who was taller than all others and looked terrible. He was old, however, and had a long white beard. "You wretch," cried the boy. "Oh," cried he, "you shall soon learn what it is to shudder, for you shall die." "Not so fast," replied the youth. "If I am to die, I shall have a say in it." "I will soon seize you," said the fiend. "Softly, softly, do not talk so big. I am as strong as you are, and perhaps stronger." "We shall see," said the old man. "If you are stronger, I will let you go. Come, we will try." Then he led him by dark passages to a smith's forge, took an axe, and with one blow struck an anvil into the ground. "I can do better than that," said the youth, and went to the other anvil. The old man placed himself near and wanted to look on, and his white beard hung down. Then the youth seized the axe, split the anvil with one blow, and in it caught the old man's beard. "Now I have you," said the youth. "Now it is your turn to die." Then he seized an iron bar and beat the old man till he moaned and entreated him to stop, when he would give him great riches. The youth drew out the axe and let him go. The old man led him back into the castle, and in a cellar showed him 3 chests full of gold. "Of these," said he, "one part is for the poor, the other for the king, and the third is yours." In the meantime, it struck 12, and the spirit disappeared, so that the youth stood in darkness. "I shall still be able to find my way out," said he, and felt about, found the way into his room, and slept there by his fire. Next morning, the king came and said, "Now you must have learnt what shuddering is?" "No," he answered. "What can it be? My dead cousin was here, and a bearded man came and showed me a great deal of money down below, but no one told me what it was to shudder." "Then," said the king, "you have saved the castle and shall marry my daughter." "That is all very well," said he, "but I still do not know what it is to shudder." Then the gold was brought up and the wedding celebrated. But howsoever much the young king loved his wife, and however happy he was, he still said always, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." And this at last angered his wife. Her waiting maid said, "I will find a cure for him. He shall soon learn what it is to shudder." She went out to the stream which flowed through the garden, and had a whole bucketful of gudgeons brought to her. At night, when the young king was sleeping, his wife was to draw the clothes off of him and empty the bucket full of cold water with the gudgeons in it over him, so that the little fishes would sprawl about him. Then he woke up and cried, "Oh, what makes me shudder so? What makes me shudder so, dear wife? Ah, now I know what it is to shudder." So that was the story of the youth who set out to learn what fear was. That is our final story for tonight here on Halloween. I'm going to turn off this live stream and go watch a movie. Thanks so much for joining me and for commenting and the follows. I will see you in the next live stream. Enjoy the last of your Halloween evening.